Wagwan, how you there? What's good? And you know who this is, baby. The #1 podcast in America, dedicated to all you kings and queens of color, homies and homettes, shotters, woo gals, G-boys, and charges. The one and only Jerk Jollof and Collard Greens podcast.
Now, if we were to compare the conditions of our upbringings and relationships with our diaspora parents from an ethnic and or cultural lens, I think it's unanimously agreed there is no household more fabled, more varied, more perplexed, and perhaps more memeable than those that belong to Nigerian parents. Niger parents are often rumored to be strict, unyielding, and demanding. Safe to say, if Nigerian parents were anime, they would probably be the Uchiha clan. You know, Sharingan this, Sharingan that. Luckily, we've got a set of Nigerians in-house today to lend us their insights on the matter. But trust and believe, you don't have to be a super eagle to relate to today's discussion, as I'll be tapping into the renowned multi-ethnic panel to reveal other views of growing up under the guardianship of diaspora parents. So whether you've yet to unblock your parents or in-laws from your social media pages, or you're still dealing with those lingering unachievable expectations, we all have them, or you're only one wedding, one childbirth, or probably one pounded yam surprise extended parental visit away from completely changing your identity and sentencing yourself to permanent isolation, then you better tune in. Wagwan Ayade, what's good? It's your boy G, serving you your daily dose of cultural escapism and more right after we pay these tributes on the world's most cultured podcast. And also, just so you know, you can catch us on Instagram at JerkJollofCollarPod. Subscribe, find additional ways to reach us as well. That's recorded in the outro. Or if you want to join the JJC family, go ahead and do that. So this episode's Rep Yours is dedicated to the homie Will Smith. And yes, that is his real name, Will Smith, over at T-SHIRTMERCENARY. Will offers custom merch printing. If you still didn't get a chance to check out our 1-year anniversary post, he's actually the printer that handled our exclusive pod giveaway tees. He's informative, insightful, professional, and transparent. Just overall a cool guy. He laid out the timeline and process of the custom shirt printing for us from start to finish. So if you're a stickler for details like myself and you want to ensure your hard-earned dollars are being well spent, then you know how important it is to work with someone that truly knows the business and loves what they do. Custom tags and prints, handling small to large orders, a plethora of clothing brands to pick from. If comfort, exclusivity, savings, and value are important to you and your brand, then go ahead and bust shots for the homie Will. Boop, boop, at TSHIRTMERCENARY on Instagram. Show him some JJC love, y'all. And feel free to check out his store at linkpop.com/T-shirt-mercenary. Also, stay on the lookout for next week's Rep Yours post for all these details once more. And on the line, I mentioned we have a multi-ethnic panel here, y'all. I have the fellas, well, 4/5 of the podcast, including myself. And that is D, Black, Fran, and Chunky. What's going on, y'all?
What it really do?
I'm ready to get into what Nigerian parents you like.
Wow. Talk to me now.
Exactly.
Facts.
We love our Nigerians, man.
We know you do. About to find out how much I love y'all. And Chunky, don't worry, we got something for you too, brother. We're gonna do some comparisons here today. One of my favorite things to do. All right, so let me ask y'all this question real quick. Well, quick little question. You know, it has to be a G Ransom Selassie question.
Oh God.
We're talking about parents. Some of us are gonna become parents. Some of us are parents. But just have to ask. You know, it's off the cuff. How many of y'all think y'all parents still get it in today?
Oh, bro. Oh, God.
No, I was not ready for that, bro.
Like, that's legit.
Oh, man.
Like, if you had to rate it on a scale of 1 to 5 to 1 never 5 every day, still,
Damn.
like they're 20.
I mean, there's something wrong that you even think of that.
Right?
Like, I mean, as
Welcome to
an
my world.
adult, you're have you walked into your parents like doing it?
Oh my God.
At a later age
no.
right now?
Luckily, no.
That's never a thought that would have crossed my mind at any point in life.
Yo,
Like, oh,
I
are my
swear to
parents still having
God.
sex right now?
But it's a legit question. You got parents.
He did preface that with Glenn. It's a Glenn.
He
type of
did.
question.
Yeah, there was so many
All right, well, you
Warning.
know what? worth a
Warning.
try. It was worth a try. You know,
I
some of our
think
parents do listen to the pod, so
we're gonna have to have a conversation later.
Yo, I played the fifth on that one. I'm pulling
I am not trying to imagine whatsoever because I
I think my
came
parents
from
are still doing it. They have to.
What is it? Where is it? How do like you come from like an ostrich or something that carries babies? What is it?
Yeah,
Is that-
it's like yeah. Say what?
stork.
Oh, orc.
Stork.
Yeah.
Stork.
Stork.
It's a
There
stork.
it
You
is.
never seen storks?
We saw the
Remember
movie.
Storks?
We watched the movie.
Yeah, it's a stork.
Yes,
Stork.
I came in on an African stork.
I can tell you right now, babies don't
That's what
comment
your
on
dad
storks.
called it.
I'm done.
The stork is here.
I've seen it with my own eyes. I know how it's done.
I'm done.
Come ride the stork. All right.
Kileleo.
Without further ado, let's chop, y'all. I'm gonna drop this off to our resident Nigerians first. So before we get into it, people gotta understand, what does living Nigerian really mean? What does growing up Nigerian actually mean? So can you drop for us, in what ways does growing up in a Nigerian household differ from that of any other, let's say, Black or ethnic household? And are any of these experiences unique to your culture or ethnicity?
Where should I go?
Go ahead, Fran.
I mean, I think growing up in Nigeria, at least a lot of the values and cultures there's a lot of overlaps with the Black culture in the US. You know, like i.e., you can't call people like your elders by like their first name. You have to be respectful to your elders. So examples like that. But some of the things that's really interesting growing up in Nigeria though, is like, now Africans, especially Nigerians, are really religious. Like, growing up in Nigeria, man, we went to church every single day. My parents and I went to church every single day. So
Monday
like
to Saturday.
Monday to Sunday, 5:00, 5 p.m., man. And on top of that, we actually pray at home as well. So I was like praying. We go to church, we come home, pray in the morning, and pray
Prayed
at
up.
night. Yeah, we were prayed up, fam. Like, but ultimately, like growing up in Nigeria, there's a level of seniority and gender roles in the family. Like the man is the head of the household, and the kids, you pretty much have to play their part. You talk when spoken to. You have to show a lot of respect. And you just have to like kind of just mind your business. And if you say something crazy, you might get a backhand slap to your face. So you have to be. You can't talk back to your parents. There's so much that as stuff growing up. And good, it's not good enough. You have to be great as a Nigerian. So there's just so much, man. Like, I mean, I'll let my cousin go, but and I'll come back and have a few more. But yeah.
No, man, I think you already kind of highlighted something. It's funny because you highlight something I never even thought about, that if I had to compare growing up Nigerian to another group, I would definitely say it's like growing up like Black in the South, because as Nigerians we do say a lot of sir and ma'am, or we say ma and sa, but you gotta say sir and ma'am. There's a lot of respect for your elders, fundamentally there, or I should say intrinsically there. The way you kind of communicate with your peers versus you. I will say we take it a little bit further, because even when, like prime example, like me and my cousin, when we first grew up, there was a certain way that he had to talk to me, that his parents would try to enforce, that he has to be so proper and so respectful. And I was the
Brother
type of
D
person-
Black.
Yeah, you have to be like brother. You can't just say the name, you know what I mean? You gotta be brother, sister, auntie. You have, like, everybody gets that level of respect if they older than you. So I'll say that's one key difference. Except for me, I absolutely hated that growing up. So like I always tell my cousins, like, chill. All my siblings chill. Like, I don't like that. But the food obviously was different. But like I said, like even in the South, they have very specific food that they eat. But I will say, one thing that, and I don't know, I guess I don't know this part of growing up in the South, and maybe Chunky could add some context, for like having some Southern background. But like levels of punishment. There was no degrees.
Corporal punishment.
It was all degrees of punishment was relatively, I would say relatively. I mean, obviously we're not castrating our children, but like there was
definitely a lot of overlap there for sure.
Extreme. I'd hope
no
not.
castration.
Like what?
That would be the end of your family tree.
There's no castration.
Very extreme.
But I'm just saying. All right, in all seriousness. But like we would hold up chairs until your arms get nervous,
Also, it's like an honor system involved with like people in certain parts of the family and how.
Yeah, there was definitely a hierarchy. I would say, there was clearly a hierarchy, and you were taught that very early on in life, and it never was just within your house. It was within your community, within your neighborhood, any other Nigerians you knew, even non-Nigerians, you still prostrate, and prostrate is like a form of bowing. You would still have to do that. So yeah, that was one thing. Yeah, and then of course, very, very religious. Like we're very, very religious culture.
Yeah, I mean, one really interesting thing is also men and women are raised to like be like a adult, like a man and a woman. Like you have to like, I mean, like growing up, man, I had to like at the age of 11, I was already cooking for my family.
Yeah,
like so like at expectation for the kids, like you're as a woman, you also are like more like my parents didn't really care if I was a man or a woman. The expectations for the household and the keeping up of the household were the same. You do the dishes. We never used dishwashers growing up. My parents they just bought a new dishwasher, and I was laughing. I was like, "So are you guys gonna actually use this one?" And she was like, "Nope." And my sister was like, "She was like, no, they told me I could probably use it once a week." I was like, "Oh man, yo, still bugging." It's like, what's the point of having it still? But like, it's so funny. But like, one thing though about growing up also African as Nigerians, our parents, and I think there's no overlap here. African parents show no love, man. There's no emotional support from African parents, man. Like a lot of us grew up, even still to this day, like a lot of us have not heard "I love you" from our parents because like, and it's the way they were raised. They were raised with tough love, and they raised a lot of us the same way with tough love. And so, something like my pastor always say, like we just did a 4-week, like a program for like marriage. He says you want to make sure you figure your shit out. Well, he didn't say it like that, but he said you want to figure your shit out.
In summary,
it's like you want to figure your shit out as a married couple, as a man and a woman, so your kids does not need therapy when they become adults. Like, and I think like the way African parents sometimes raise their kids is for you to need therapy when you get older.
Emotional damage.
But you know what? And to be fair to my parents, man, like I feel like my parents did a really nice job to all of us raising us. So this is not like really specifically talking about my parents, but it's just from a cultural standpoint, as a general, like that is something that is still prevalent in our culture that we still. I think there's a lot of pushback now with with technology. People are getting more exposure to the Western culture, and so I think even in the Nigerian culture today, I think there's a lot more pushback from kids, and they want to adapt different ways of living. So.
The one thing I think, the reason why I think that is though, is because primarily, as parents, coming from Nigeria to America, they're focusing on, all right, what do we think is essential for our kids to be successful? Like, what do we think that they will absolutely need to thrive, right? That's why they push us into like, there's only so many professions that we can actually go into, and they'll be like, what is that? And you tell them that, I want to be a influencer. What influence what? Who are you influencing?
Your grades.
Your grades. So I mean, if they try to teach us based on the context of what they know, and and what they were raised on. So, I will say, it's weird because to see my parents, start to get a grasp of like, there needs to be a emotional kind of connection at some point. There needs to be a deeper dive into the psychology of the child, of the person, because as we all kind of like come together as a village to kind of contribute to my niece, you know, like, oh, they need that. Oh, they need that. Oh, they need that. It's not just giga grades, better giga grades, and get the best paying job. It's not just that anymore.
Yeah.
So I will say that there is a shift, but you know, it's not because like Nigerians are naturally cold or something like that. It's just that's not what they feel like we were. That's not what that's not what they used, or the tools that they felt that we would need to survive, you know, growing up in America. So
you guys touched on some great things there and unpacked a lot, like all the way from the influences of the South, because honestly, a lot of the Southern cuisine and culture is influenced by West African slaves. And as far as like how okra is used and certain spices that are used. So that's like amazing to see kind of like the footprint, right? But then like another thing you guys also brought up was as far as, and one thing that intertwines with me as well is that lack of emotion. And it's like, I probably not knocking my parents at all, but I kind of feel like it was something as well to them that they didn't hear often. So repeating it or emulating it was just not natural to them. They showed they loved you in other ways, you know, by encouraging you or forcing you to go to church and go to school and get on the right path. Like, we got you here, right? You're in America, right? Or do you need us to show you that we love you? And it was just like, I probably heard my dad said, I love you like twice in his life. And one of them, he was high out of his mind. So it was probably one of those deathbed moments. Like, I don't know, this might be the last time. But
yeah.
But he's well for everyone, for the record, as you know. But
sorry.
yeah, I would just say that it's just so interesting to see me growing up in a Jamaican household, and it's just seeing how the cultures are so intertwined despite, you know, geography and location. Like, it's like whether or not it's like a truly Black experience. And like, and for us in Jamaican homes, it's like we'll have a cousin that's older, but because they're older, we call them auntie or uncle. And so we may not necessarily have that honor system or repatriating, but you show respect by how you greet people. And, you know, I think with all of us, families also very intrinsic, like having a role to play in the family. I have a question for you. Like, how many do you guys at all think, as far as how hard Nigerian parents go, that is it any way related, especially when you talk about moving from Africa to the States, how much of that was them probably just trying to preserve the culture and values and hoping that it wouldn't get lost in like a Western society? Like, do you think that's also another reason why they're probably going so hard? You know, before we go to Chunky and get his feedback on maybe how his household was a little different. But
I think so. I mean, I think African parents actually show you what love is without telling you they love you. Because like when I think back to some of the things my parents, I mean, now my parents, like to my cousin's point, like they use the word love you all the time. They've grown a lot. You know, I think we all have grown a lot, you know. But when I think back to the actual things my parents do for us, it speaks louder than words what actually means I love you. Like when your parents can like drop everything they are doing to come pick you up from whatever you're doing. Like you could get stuck on the highway, doesn't matter where they at, like they drop everything. They are always your first go-to person. You know, that to me, like, you know, like even though like I think there's that cultural difference in the approach of showing love, but I think action speaks so much more, bro. And to your question too, I think that is one of their that's one of their biggest fear, because I think when they initially came to the state, I don't think they really fully understood what they were getting into until they actually got in it and they realized the level of challenge. And I think with them even being here for many years and now raising, you know, 4 kids in the culture, they realize the challenges the kids actually have to face in school, and some of the challenges that, like, some of the things maybe they didn't have to deal with that we are dealing with now as young adults. So for them, they realize they have to also adjust their mindset to how they kind of go about things. So yeah, but and I think that's also going to like how the way the expectation on marriage, because they do want to preserve the culture, because they fear if you go outside of the race, you will lose a part of who you are. And you know, I've heard that statement before, so I know that is one of the main reasons. You know.
Yeah, I think I would say, like, you know, coming to America and, no pun intended, but coming to
I was gonna say which one or two.
I just realized I
The
did
good
that.
one.
Whichever one is the good one. The first one.
D Black.
The first one,
one.
obviously the first one. I know better than that. All right, but no, but in all seriousness, not knowing what to expect, right? So imagine, even, I'll kind of frame it this way. Imagine, taking everything you have, everything you've learned, right? Moving to a completely different country, that different language, different expectations, different cultural expectations, and then expect that you're going to be basically going there, starting from ground zero, right? And raising a family. That's a really hard thing to do. That's a lot. It's very challenging. And then not only are you starting a family there, but your children, you have to think, because by blood they'll be Nigerian, right? But they're growing up in a culture that you don't even understand. So they are going to be kids that maybe you don't even understand. Their issues you may not grasp, and you'll be attacking every issue from the knowledge you've acquired from your previous location. So it's not an easy front. It's not easy. And I would say, even growing up, I will say I did not appreciate that when I was younger, because of course, all the other kids that I grew up, we all grew up in the same environment. So I understand the other kids. Why don't my parents understand me? It's only until I grew up and then I started realizing, yeah, they came from a completely different place. They come from completely different backgrounds. Of course, they don't understand what football is. Like, we play soccer, and we still call it, we call it football. And they don't even see the value of sports from that perspective, because that was one thing that we definitely argued about when I was younger. Getting me the opportunity to play sports, because where we come from, there are sports icons and stuff like that, but it's not as prominent as here it is in America, that it is a true profession that you can aspire to go for. Obviously I didn't make it. It's okay. I'm not mad, but but I'm just
Someone's
saying,
a little salty.
Nah, a little bit. I'm over it. I just recently gotten over it, but I'm just playing. No, but in seriousness though, like, it is a complicated thing. It is a lot to expect of a person, and I just think that as I've grown up, I've learned to appreciate that more too. So when I have my own family, my kids will be different from me, because obviously even in America in a different time, that culture perspective is different. Now imagine different language, different culture, different food, different diet, different religion, different, everything is different. So I don't know. I just think it's a lot. It's definitely a lot to expect from them. So I'll just say, they obviously did the best that they could with what they had, and I turned out to be a decent human being, so I'm not mad.
All right, so Chunky, let's get into it. Considering that you're perhaps half Nigerian by affiliation at this point.
Hey, he loves a good puff puff. He loves
like,
a good
puff puff. That's it.
Like, how would you say? What ways would you say your household was probably different from that of like D Blacks or friends, if in any way they were?
I don't think there's really too much difference. One thing that was mentioned was the "I love you" thing, right? For my household, it was necessary growing up in a single parent household, and it being female, it was a necessity to be said, right? If your mother doesn't say that she loves you, then there's some issues there, because society's not going to tell you that they love you. Being a Black male, no matter what your background is, society's not going to show that grace towards you because the color of your skin or the color of your melanin is a little bit darker, right? So my dad, like, he says it more often now, but I can't really remember him saying in the past as I was growing up. And that's not like a negative thing. I think it's what they were taught growing up, because it was tough love back then. We were talking about assimilating to true American society. You had to be tough. You had to have a very stoic exterior, because someone's going to take advantage of that. To Francis's point, like, parents should show up when you need them to, right? They're not going to say it, but they need you to understand, like, this is the way that you do it. Be there for people, do the things that you need to do, be a strong community. In my household, like, the things were just different. Like, I was exposed to many different things. We had the advantage of already being close to American society, right? So there is a difference between, not going to sugarcoat it, white American society and Black American society, or people of color American society. I don't think they're all synonymous. Like, there are some things that my Caucasian counterparts can do that I know I can't do. And you can see this very recently. So the way we approach situations was like, yeah, we did go to church and I used to hate it. I'm like, damn, like I gotta go to service in the morning for Sunday school. I gotta go to like midnight service on Christmas, on New Year's. It wasn't as heavy as an everyday thing because we kind of understood like, all right, we need to go to work. Was there a prayer in the house? Yes. There wasn't the 9 o'clock or whatever time prayer call, but it's just like, hey, we're saying grace at every meal. We're thanking the Lord that we're alive and we're able to see tomorrow. So, and you can see that when slavery existed, there was a very heavy Christian influence, right? There's a lot of prayer, a lot of understanding of God and what he'll do in releasing the slaves at a certain point, and then believing in a higher power to be able to manage the stress of life, right? The stress of America. I can tell you straight the fuck up, like if you don't believe in something else and you deal with all this stuff in the outside world, it is going to be challenging. So let's just be honest there. Other than that, like when it came down to picking a profession, we had the option to do whatever we wanted to do as long as you did something, right? I can't speak for every Black household. I can only just speak for mine. It's just that it was an expectation for us to get a degree, for us to get into a good profession. We got beatings, right? And the beatings weren't because like they wanted to show absolute force, but it was that negative reinforcement in the sense that this is the treatment that you're going to receive if you do something wrong. Now, you got to understand, a female handling two men is not going to be easy. So I completely understand why we got our ass whoops, because we were beating up on each other. You got two dudes going at it. As soon as we heard that belt crack, we're stopping because one of us is going to get it. And it was that technique to like just calm the air, right? Like, hey, you done fucked up. And now you're going to get the results of your action. But in life and reality, in the outside world, that result of that action may not be as forgiving as a love from a parent who's beating you, in the sense that this is physical pain. That mental and emotional pain is going to stay with you forever. You go to jail, that's going to be a scar, especially since, you know, you're an African American or, you know, you're Black or a person of color. That's going to stick with you for life. So if you can't get it right in this household, you sure as hell you're going to get it right out there. And they don't want to see you fail out in real life. Is there some trauma behind that? Yes and no. I say yes, funnily, because it's like every time I see a belt, I have flashbacks and I start sweating. But I know.
Oh boy! Oh boy! I didn't do it. That wasn't me.
That's it.
Believe me, mama.
That part, man.
So it served to be a good thing to do. Besides, like, hey, you're in timeout. Now, did I have timeouts? My mom used to say, "Oh, go over there and grab a dust bunny," or "You need to read this entire book." And it's just like that was punishment. Like, I can't play my video games. I can't go outside and play. I have to read this book. But that punishment was actually growth in a sense. So even though there are some minor differences, I think they truly align, besides going to church every day, because it was just like, that would be tough. I'm not going to lie.
That would just be my parents, man. Or the neighborhood I grew up in. But...
that is hard. But I can understand why, though, because you like what D Black said, you're coming into a different culture and you have to try to assimilate, right? So even though there are some differences, I think at the end of the day, when you break it down, it's all the same. If you're a person of color, there is culture in your household. There is an understanding that the way you act here has to be reflective of the way you act out there. With a lot of respect, I think, Glenn, you said it, like, I have cousins that are way older than me, and they were called auntie and uncle, right? But they're truly cousins, but there's a line of respect.
Yep.
My cousins my age, I'm just gonna call you by your first name. That's it. Or just call you a piece of shit and back and forth, whatever it may be. It depends on that relationship. Is that quote unquote tough love, right? Even though I say some negative things to you, based on our relationship and how we act with one another, we understand that. Because when someone calls me something negative out in real life, it isn't going to faze me. It's like, yeah, I heard this shit before. It's not that hard. So there is some character building in that. It's not all malicious treatment. It's more so like, hey, we need to prepare you to be a successful person later on down the line.
And it's just amazing to hear all those different like nuances behind culture and ethnicities. And it's just like, it's crazy to think, but it's sad to think that one of the things that bonds us essentially is trauma. Whether that be the experiences that came from our parents from their origin lands. Because, you know, speaking of the church thing, my mom, for example, she went to every church every day. Whether it was a seven-day Adventist growing up, but my grandmother sent her to the Catholic church, non-denominational church. It was like, yo, your full day, guess what you're doing today? church.
So she knows the pain. She understands
the fact, and then wanting to repeat that because that's what you're exposed to is just like, you wonder, like, is it really your culture? Is it a result of colonialism? Is it a result of things that may have happened in your time, in your day, that are now, okay, this is what your parents did, now this is what you do, now, hey, this is what we did, so guess what? You guys have to do it too. And
right.
It's just insane to think that way.
Chunky, I have a question because I was thinking, one thing that we do in the Nigerian community that kind of annoys me is we make assumptions like about people, about situations. Like if somebody scratched their nose, we like think it means something. I was like, yo, is that a thing in the Black community as well, or is that?
Well, let's jump into that question. Then. There's a question on here. What are some things that your parents say or do that may not hold any value, but are often repeated or expected? Like, let's jump into
it. I laugh because rest in peace, like my grandmother, like it seems like those, like she'll say like the wildest shit, right? And like she'll be sitting there like, oh, my palms is this shit. I must be getting paid some type of money tomorrow. I'm like,
oh, facts, yeah.
Grandma, that ain't got shit to do with nothing. But I'm just like, okay. And if you came over, it sucks that Glenn kind of missed out on it sometimes. My grandma talked the most shit about people, right? She would make every assumption about somebody. D-Black knows because he's been there and witnessed it. They can sneeze and they'll be like, she'll talk, oh, they sneeze because they got some type of disease or something. Oh, God. She's scratching her head because she ain't got no real hair. I'm like, God dang, man. Grandma, like,
why she doing that?
Yeah. And like that was just like a pastime, right? So yeah, those things exist. I think it is a cultural overlap, or being a person of color and coming from a culture of color. I think all cultures of color have a lot of deep-rooted things about it, right? And I say that not to be negative against our Caucasian counterparts, but there are some things about, Nigerian culture that y'all are go to church for everything, like going to weddings, y'all just like dance for everything. I've never been at a wedding where they just throw money. And I'm just like, I didn't know what to do. Exactly.
I'm like, yo, like, you gotta be paid to be Nigerian, bro.
That's the thing. Like, you make certain things like smooth, right? And that's just a different cultural background. So
that's so funny.
Yeah,
no, Africans, even though you're broke, man, you're still trying to fake it till you make it, man. Africans, man,
trying to shakara.
We are so prideful, and like, so this is one thing about Africans or Nigerians. We want people to see our best, so we present ourselves in the best light, and like whatever negative that we have going on, we keep it underneath and we deal with that at home, right? So I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing, because I think I definitely took that from my parents, because I mean, this is actually a prayer that a saying that my parents they grew up saying, that I actually adapted it, is don't let my secret, pretty much the translation is, don't let my enemy know my secret. Like so ultimately what it means is, don't let my deepest secret be at a full display for my enemy or for the public to know. Even if I cannot pay my bills, I don't want the people, like, let that be a known information, if that makes sense. So like, so it's but yeah, so I mean, I'll let my cousin, but I have another comment that I'll come back to later. So I'll let my cousin talk.
Okay, yeah, well, I think you're actually making a really good point, though, because within Nigerian culture, I won't say that, I would say we are always trying to show our best, I mean, there are other cultures too that, like, even where we wear our native, our traditional African attire can be very, glamorous, with like lots of beads and rhinestones and, really elaborate colors and things like that. But, I think ultimately, I think part of it is, we don't traditionally want other people to look down on you, if that really is. I feel like this is probably a question I probably could have prepared better. Maybe I got my mom's feedback or something like that, on how to answer this kind of question. But I think it's just part of it is just that we ultimately are always just trying to show our best and be in the best light at all times. Like one big thing is, shame. So like you never are ever just going to do something that just embarrasses you, right? Because it's really big when you do something poorly, it reflects on your family. There's other cultures that do that too. But in Nigeria culture, it's very, very, every action you take, everything you do, it's never just like, oh, so-and-so did something crazy and, got poor bad grades. It's like, this child, uneducated. They're going to think that you came from an uneducated family. No one took time to make you go to a good school. That's how they're going to interpret it. And that's how it gets presented versus it just being something is just like, yeah, your kid is as smart as rocks.
Yeah. I mean, African parents
they have a smooth
very,
brain.
A smooth brain. Shout out to our homie that gets that.
They try to manipulate shit. African parents are very.
I will say, yeah. I mean, I think to
get what they want.
Oh,
sometimes.
Not
always. You sure it's not like you sure it's like
be a little
altruistic
thing?
What?
You sure it's not like a parenting thing?
No,
like
this is not even like, I'm talking about in general though. This is general speaking, not my parents specifically, but one thing though about my parents though, like that I would say specifically to my parents, when we like do something bad or not do well in school, they used to say something like they're gonna send us back home to Nigeria.
Yeah, that was always a threat.
Oh my God, like it's like
I'd rather get sent back home than sit into a coffin. That was a threat. I don't know about you, Glenn, but that was a threat.
Yeah,
it wasn't back home. It was like
getting sent back home could even be worse because then I could really turn up then, right?
I would say that I wish
they use it as a negative though.
Like, it was I'm gonna strip you of all your luxuries that you have right
exactly.
now.
Yeah, exactly. And I will say that the only part that I wish that like it was very commonplace in Nigerian parents to do that because every cousin, every family member, every friend, Nigerian family, like they all swore that their parents, I'll send you back for at least 2 good years, and you come back. Like I really wish that was not the threat because that threat definitely had me growing up thinking like, oh crap, I don't never want to go to Nigeria. I don't ever want to go back, and it's like it must be a terrible experience.
Good point.
When in fact, all they were trying to say is that the training that you would get in Nigeria, the discipline that be imparted on you is going to be, stronger and more rigorous, and people are going to be less patient with you, and all the liberties and stuff that you think that all this free to say whatever and curse out your teacher and, shout out to the last episode, like you won't get to do that here. Like we send you back to Nigeria. But in turn, for me growing up, it made me feel like, I was like, do I really want to go back to Nigeria? I ain't never trying to go back there.
I was like, I've never been. Can I take his place?
I mean, growing up, I've gotten past that, but I'm just saying, I just think that it just, growing up, that was really rough because I always had that mindset, like, yo, I better be good because I ain't trying to get sent back to Nigeria.
Wow, I never thought about that. So it brings a negative connotation to it from your perspective of where you're from. Like, okay, now they've put this negative imagery on it. Now you just like, oh wow, that's a great
point. Like that was my whole like I was like, oh man, that was the ultimate for me. That felt like the ultimate punishment, like the ultimate level of punishment.
And they do it too. I know a few kids
who got sent
back home. But the crazy part is sometimes it always doesn't turn out the way they think it does, because sometimes when you send the kids back, they actually become more rebellious.
Or those kids that don't come back, they intend that they actually enjoy it so much they prefer the life there than don't come back.
Yeah, it could be. The outcome could be.
I would say like one thing for sure, like understanding like being around D-Black and his family, it's an interesting dynamic, right? And to attest to like Nigerian parents being like tough, like his dad did not like me in the beginning. and it was
like anybody in the beginning. I don't think his dad liked anybody.
I don't like Kandan.
Like none of my friends.
I don't like you.
His mom was super nice. Pointed something else like, oh, Kandan is reckless, And it was just like it was day one of showing
Our,
up.
our accents are
like,
on point, by the way.
That's funny.
Cut it out.
And I had a career switch, and like now his dad loves me. Oh, it's Kandan. Oh, don't Kandan. Like I love you so much, Kandan. I'm like, and like he adopted me as his son. I'm just like, I don't know what to do at this point. But like it's I saw how challenging the household was, right? And I was like, Glenn, for your household too, like to me, your parents seem like super fun and chill, right? Especially your dad. Every time I like came through, super happy, super willing to talk. They weren't as like judgmental as D-Black's dad. That was like really hard to deal with. I didn't know what to say to him. I didn't know what to do. And then like when I told him what my like what I wanted to be, like after college, he just looked at me like, that is it? That is all? I'm like, yeah, what's the problem?
I will say that speaks a lot to, and I think that overall kind of speaks exactly to being a Nigerian child, because the expectation of success is so high. It's so funny because I remember going back looking at some like report cards or something. I thought I was like an absolute. I used to get in trouble in school. I will be honest, but I would get in trouble for like behavior things. You know, like had a little bit of a temperament, which believe if you do or don't. But I was like, oh, I must have like really bad grades and stuff like that. And then I was looking at my old school report cards my parents used to keep. I was a straight A student. I was like, what? But my parents made me feel like, but the way that it was approached, I felt like I was like getting really bad grades. There was a couple times I got some B's. I got like maybe 1 B or 2 B's every once in a while, like again when I was in my younger years. But I was just like, I think I did pretty good academically, but not from their perspective. Like the way that it was approached in the house, you would think I was like getting straight F's or something. That's how.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of that also comes from too, like when it came to about meeting like our friends, like when our parents understood that, hey, we're in America, it's a mixed salad, or a melting pot. You're gonna meet a lot of other different cultures, and I think a lot of their concern when it comes to like how you perform in the company that you keep is potentially these other cultures could impact or dilute yours, and in turn produce a product that's not what we want. Or like some of the fears was, okay, I think a lot of them dealt with preconceived notions of what other cultures or ethnicities were like. And it was just like, okay, I don't want you to get influenced by these because I heard these people are lazy, or I heard these people are stingy, or I heard these people are mean, or I heard these people are deceitful. So it was just like, even with people that were of the same race, it was like they placed a lot of emphasis on your connections because they didn't want you to get involved with the wrong people. And I feel like with immigrant parents potentially have that weight of their entire country on their shoulders, because for some people it's like, this is probably going to be my first time experiencing someone from Jamaica or Nigeria, and it's just like, okay, we feel the responsibility to leave a great or lasting impression. We want to be immaculate, we want to be perfect. And another point as to why appearances are so important with our cultures, because especially when it comes to being in a different world, different land, we want to present the best of our culture. It's just like the same reason why you'll have Jamaicans in America that are citizens of the US, but they still cheer for their home team in the Olympics. You know what I mean? So it's like a little bit of a win-win situation, but in the heart, you're like, I'm coming up in my Jamaican colors today. And it was just like that identity as well. But to get to the point as far as, I think with that, yes, there comes a point where expectations can be a little too high as far as, okay, what I'm able to achieve, because in a sense, we're dealing with issues that they didn't deal with in their day, but now we have the weight of, upholding my culture, making sure my parents are satisfied, before it's a matter of, okay, what makes me happy? And understanding that what may make me happy isn't what they want to see, because they have an understanding of what success actually looks like in this country, and what they feel will sometimes even be best for them to talk about. Because let's be real, our cultures love to brag about their kids. So it's just like there's always like a competition of, oh, who kid doing this, who's kid doing that, oh, what's your kid doing today, oh yeah, and then it becomes just like that. I feel like it does more harm than good. Well, I guess I would pass that off to you all, in the sense, like, at some point, did you feel that your parents were like too strict or toxic in a sense when it came to those things?
I mean, strict. I would say, yeah, I would say yes, because of the fact that I was comparing myself to other people in the environment that I grew up with. You know, like kids that literally had, I mean, from my perspective, no rules. Like they could literally do whatever they want, come into the house whenever they want, go out whenever they want. And mind you, I'm like 12, 13, and these kids out here at like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, you know. So from that perspective, at that time, looking at it through that lens, yes, it felt like they were crazy strict. You know, there was a point where we weren't even allowed to watch TV growing up. Like during the week, my dad was like, we would absolutely not allow us to watch TV. The only, actually, I take that back. He actually started loosening up when like he loved is it Jeopardy? No, Jeopardy. No, Jeopardy.
I mean,
Like
Jeopardy,
that was the
Wheel of
only show we
Fortune.
were allowed to watch. Like we were only allowed to watch Jeopardy because he felt that it was somewhat. What'd you say?
Make you smarter.
Yeah, it felt it was somewhat educational. It felt like it was somewhat. But I was like, but then ultimately Jeopardy. I felt like, well, anyway. But I don't know if it was really educational other than random facts. But yeah, that was the only thing we were allowed to watch growing up. You know, and then. So from my perspective, you know, I see people having like parties and hanging out on the weekend and getting turned, doing whatever. And I'm like, I want to go hang out and, you know, be bad with my friends. But
Getting
you know,
turned at 12 and 13.
yeah, you'd be. I mean, we know where we grew up.
Rep where you come from, D. Rep where you from, D.
You said, bruh.
You know what I mean? So Brownsville projects. No, I'm just I ain't gonna do it. I ain't gonna. I mean, Brownsville, stand up.
Wait, Fran, do that again.
Oh, you didn't see that.
I don't know.
I was repping my set, bro. What you mean?
I missed it. You know, Brownsville stand up. But no, but so yeah. So from that perspective, yes. From that perspective, yes. But you know, there's actually another part here that maybe we may tackle a little bit later. You know, I think coming into America, you know, already being immigrants, and you know, there's a certain stigma around immigrants in general, but then also being African Americans, you know, there's already some issues with African, you know, how African Americans get treated in the US. So as immigrants and then being African American, they were trying so hard to kind of like distinguish themselves, like, oh, like don't get, you know, that's their fight. And I know we talked about this in one episode, you know, but like don't get caught up in their fight. That's their troubles, you know, whatever. You know, we're Nigerians, we're different. We need to show that we're different. And it felt like that was part of the fight as well, you know, to distinguish ourselves, to say that we're not just, you know, the African Americans that are in this same group that, you know, that are already marginalized here in America. We are, you know, straight from the motherland, and we're different, you know. And I think that was also part of some of the reason why I wasn't able to hang out with some of the people that I wanted to and do some of the things I wanted to as well. So stricter, yes, it felt like that, but you know, long-winded way of saying, you know, I felt like in the long-term perspective, it felt warranted.
Yeah, so it wasn't just strict for the sake of being cruel. It was more so in the sense of, like we kind of touched on, putting the best forward, representing your continent, your country, and yeah, and I can definitely understand how that goes. I think Fran, when you want to drop something on that as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, I grew up with, I mean, oh yeah, my parents were strict, bro. I couldn't, I mean, just to like even go play basketball with friends, like after school was, I had to like ask my parents like a week before, just to like, just to get the okay.
Who you play basketball with?
And you know, like, you know, but you know, but the really weird part is like, you know, since I'm the oldest, you know, they're how strict they are kind of lessons. You know, it was my younger siblings got more freedom than I did growing up. And I was like, man, like, look at y'all got it good and y'all still complaining. I was like, yo, I didn't even get to do after the stuff y'all did or y'all doing right now. Because I know my sister, she's 20 now, and I know she wish she has more liberty to like do more stuff. But even like now that I'm older, I understand, man. Like, you know, one thing that I've like actually really appreciate, and I understand, like even being a parent, like how like you're so concerned about the safety of your kids. You know, now that I'm married, like just to even watch, like sometimes even like watching my wife drive off, I'm like super like okay, just text me when you get there, let me know when you get like he just like have this level of care, like you want to know, like,
Protectiveness.
but yeah, just so protective. So I understand, like, our parents feel so much a level of secure, like knowing like the kids are at home. Like I know I have my eyes on them, they are safe. I don't need to worry about what they get into in the streets.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much stuff out there, man. Like, I mean, we watched the show. If you watch Euphoria, bro, like kids out here are wilding out, man. In
I'm
high
not a
school,
Peoria.
bro. Like there's a
Mm.
lot.
I,
But one thing that I would say though, I mean, I don't think your parents can fully protect you from all that stuff, because eventually you will still get out the house and you get exposed to those things. So I think the really is finding the sweet spot, because I mean you can be too strict and like let your kid then while out when they do get out. So it's finding the balance. I think that's the tough part.
you could imagine if they showed Euphoria to our parents while we were growing up. Like, hey, this is what high school in Western
Boy,
society is like. Yo, we would
man.
never even come to the States. They'd be like, nah,
Never.
that's
No
Yeah.
way. It wouldn't be leave the house.
Nah, I was like, I don't think it
I'm
was
sure.
that bad. I think it was that bad back then. It has its nuances, right? So it's say like growing up, I wasn't, but my mother wasn't strict. She was structured, and she screened the people that I would want to hang out with, right? So she put us in certain activities. She made sure we were in a house. I got to watch TV up until a certain point, but on the back end, I had to read X amount of books during the summer. I had to go and play a sport. I had to go and play an instrument. And there was an expectation set that I had to achieve a certain goal at a certain point as I was growing up, right? I think she understood that if you restrict too much from a kid, they're going to wild out later. I think that's the Francis's point. But if you give them the knowledge that they need, they're able to encounter adversity and work their way through it. You can try to protect your child from everything, but that's going to fail. But if you teach them everything, then they have a higher chance of succeeding in various situations. So having the culture already imprinted on us of American society as being African American and having my parents grow up here was a little bit easier. There's a little bit things that they understood, like, okay, you're hanging out with, Jerome or Billy or Tim from down the street, and you're not bad kids. I know their parents. She'll go to our way. She'll talk to parents. She'll get to know people, right? And you talk about that community atmosphere. So being intertwined in that culture automatically gives a lot of leadway because there's an already established understanding. But I think there's a difference between being strict or being structured. And as some of us are parents on the spot, is understanding being structured is more beneficial than being strict. Because like, okay, cool, it's 9 o'clock, lights out, time to go to sleep. Hey, it's Saturday. Now you can stay up to 9:05. But at 9:06, you're going to bed. And you kind of like start giving rope for understanding, right? And you see how they manage the time, and then you adjust fire from there. Coming from a different country altogether, I can't relate to that. I don't know. I wouldn't know how to understand being first generation or second generation anything, because my family's been here for a while. It's a lot tougher, a lot more expectations are put on you. I've been very fortunate to have an understanding, but at the same time, my life was very structured. I can tell you straight the fuck up. Like there are times I was like, I don't want to go to music practice. I want to sit here and play video games. Even that was structured. Like I had a time limit how long I could play games, but everything was followed up for a reason. And I think that's what makes a difference. I think every parent has a reason for what they do and their intention behind it to see a certain result to make their child better than what they are. And I think as we grow up, we understand that. And as we become parents, we understand that too.
Yeah. So at any point, did you ever have to, let's say, and I'll throw this out to the group entirely as well, abandon an idea, a passion, or a relationship for the sake of keeping your guardians happy, your parent or your guardians happy?
Hell yeah.
So you wouldn't think that's too strict, or
No, because they saw something I didn't see. And that's the way I look at it, right? There's some things at the end of the day, what's the point of questioning it, right? Even if it was the wrong decision by them, it's whatever at this point. I still became a great person. Did it suck in the moment? Yeah. Like, how do you know, like, this is the best thing for me? I know it's best for myself, even though I'm like 10 or 11 or 12, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they did it for a reason. I can say unequivocally, all our parents love us. So the decisions that they made for us was to help us grow. But I know Fran and D Black have a completely different experience, and so do you, man.
Yeah, I can say that I feel like there's boundaries to love at the same time. There could be like a hurtful kind of love at the same sense. Like you hear cases of moms that intentionally make their kids sick. Not going to say moms in particular, but parents that make their kids sick intentionally just to constantly put them in that state of needing and wanting care. And for them, that's showing their love. Like in my opinion, I feel like at some point where I have to like strip a part of who I think I am or where I'm going. Like, of course, if it's something that's going to hurt me, I would expect my parents to protect me from that. That's their job. But at the same time, I feel like a lot of the problems that exist in some of our backgrounds, like immigrant families, diaspora families, is that they want to control every aspect of what you do, what they feel like is best for you. And honestly, it took a couple rebels, it took a couple renegades for them to find out that, hey, my greatness wasn't in being a doctor or a lawyer. It was actually being a performer. You know what I mean? It was actually being that football. And I'm pretty sure when them checks come in, everybody's happy. So
That
it's
part.
like that part. So I felt like, yeah, at some point it can get a little crazy to where if you do have to abandon an idea, that's a little overbearing in my opinion. And it's just like, especially in the sense, or especially as your younger years where you're supposed to kind of explore and learn as many things as you can. You know what I mean? Like hopefully get access to all those things that their parents can afford to do, rather than I think with our parents, especially the really strict ones, they kind of have this idea or sense of what the right thing is based on maybe some of their experiences growing up and what they've seen and what they don't want to have happen. But in that sense, when you kind of hold us too tight, you end up hurting us in the same sense.
So quick question while your juices are flowing, like to
Sure.
that, do you think it's more so the probability of success in a career versus telling you to give it up because they don't agree with it?
That's a good question.
Yeah, and I think that will always be the problem, right? Because imagine I could be a doctor, but I could be a real shitty doctor too. You know what I mean? Especially if my heart's not in it. Next thing you know, I got malpractice cases out the ass. It's just like, and I get myself in even more trouble. So it's just like to them, there's so much pride in knowing that, yo, my son is a doctor. Like, what can you really say to that? You know what I mean? Versus, yo, my son, shakes his ass.
Paychecks is coming in.
What a transition of jobs.
You go there on Fridays at 12, you might get to see the stork.
Making 6 figures or more.
Yo, I mean, like
career progression.
Yo, shout out to my mom, my parents. I feel like that's one thing my parents don't do, because my parents understand the complexity of raising a kid and how like every kid how come is different, and they try not to actually like share too much of our success with everyone, because they understand like some parents may be struggling with their kids, like so they can't share the same information, and they don't want to like put target on our back, like we start accumulating a bunch of haters because stuff like that, because it's a reality, and jealousy and competition and all this stuff kind of start creeping in between like friendship and relationship and stuff. So like my parents tried to actually protect us from actually really putting our full accomplishment out there, because they don't want people that to be a thing for us, which I personally appreciate. But to answer your question, one thing that I mean, I've never really lost a like kind of give up a relationship because my parents said so. One thing I've really like appreciate about my mom, I remember all of my relationship I've told my mom, actually. Like I remember the first time I had a girlfriend, I didn't tell her while I was in a relationship because it was my first one, but I did told her, I think a month later, and she was like, huh, okay, well, don't tell your dad about this. But like ever since I've always, I think that's kind of like the bond that kind of grew between my mom and I, because I feel like I always feel very comfortable telling my mom like really deep like stuff that goes on in my life. And then but now I can say I can share that with both of my parents, but growing up, it was my mom that I usually hear first. But one thing that one thing about like African parents though is the age expectation. Like when you're 25, you're supposed to be engaged, be married, and stuff like that. So like they do have a lot of like, I remember when I was you're still dating, and my mom think you could get married within a year from dating someone. It's like, Mom, I'm not getting married in a year because I'm not even dating anybody yet. And like, but they think you can like meet someone, get engaged, and get married all in 12 months. And I'm like, Mom, well, it does happen, but that is not my path. And I'm not doing that. But we got to a point where we can really have conversations, and then we can go back and forth. And I've learned something. Like, I always get my way with my parents. I always get my way. It's like it might be a fight and we go at it for like maybe a week or so, or maybe a couple of days, but we always come back to the table and talk about it. And that's the one thing I really appreciate, though, like, because they always like, oh, you always like make all this decision and you want us to just like follow suit. I was like, yeah. So that's one thing that I would say that I really appreciate, even though it's something they maybe disagree with. I know, like, drinking, going out to parties, stuff like that, it's, growing up, in a religious family, that's something they're not very proud of that we do, but they share their feedback on it. But my mom always say, I want you guys to find God in your own time, because she knows that is really what the core is finding that, for yourself, right?
Yeah, and I think a
It
large
sounds
part
like,
of
yeah.
oh,
No, I was gonna say, it sounds like Fran had it pretty open. If I had told my parents I had a girlfriend at that young age, they'd been like, "Yo, your girlfriend better be Harper Collins or Penguin Random House or
Yo, I was
Scholastic."
18. I was 18. I was
Oh.
18. I was 18, not that young. I was
Also, that
18.
shows a difference. I had a girlfriend in kindergarten.
Like, you better be Scholastic. That better be your girlfriend. Scholastica.
First girlfriend was an
Go ahead,
18.
D-Boy.
Yep.
Go ahead, D.
So I think in general, I mean, this even kind of goes back. So this is interesting because I know we're talking about the Nigerian perspective, but I know even in the episode where we were kind of talking about parenting, I think every parent is just, they're all just trying to, mitigate risks, and and not, it's good to have like dreams, at least for my parents. They had no problem with having dreams, but when you pursue a dream so fervently that there is no backup plan, that was the things that kind of made my parents nervous. Like me wanting to play football and basketball, and I'm thinking I'm gonna go pro. And oh, look at Nate Robinson, he's 5'9" and he's in the league balling. You know what I mean? He's not in the league no more. But those type of things, like, you can't live your life based on the one exception. I mean, that doesn't mean you can't be exceptional. It's just, I think that was the one thing that my parents were always just like, well, at least definitely my dad. My dad was he is a very grounded person. He's grounded in reality. He's like, this is how the world works. This is the constructs of what's, available to you. This is what is likely to happen. These are the options you got to pick out of. And this is basically how he approached things. He's not the dreamer, in a sense. But I think that's where my parents kind of balanced each other out, because my mom is, very much of like a visionary type person. She's, very much, willing to try something, and if it falls apart, so be it. So that's where they kind of balanced out. So I was fortunate that that I had that, dichotomy, because I can, always kind of see the bigger picture, but understand, where the reality line kind of falls. So I think they did balance each other out. But but growing up, if there was any kind of risk associated with it, my dad was like, nope. Like, oh, who those guys? Who those guys you want to go hang out with? Oh, some friends from school. Nope.
What are their grades like?
What are they grades?
That part.
Goes back to screening your
He wears
friends.
a bandana. He wears he has a bandana. I'm like, with dad, like, it's just one of my
Got
homies.
braids.
He has a bandana. He has braids. Oh my gosh.
Got earrings.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Remember when
so
I had my dreads? Oh my gosh. That was
forget about it.
That was a fight.
So I'll drop this question. Yeah, I'll drop this question to y'all. Like, as an adult now and having those experiences, do you guys feel it's easier now to communicate with your parents, or it's only gotten more difficult? Especially when you think about like milestones in your life, right? Like when it comes to maybe getting that wedding or changing careers or, having children, do you guys feel it's been easier or a lot more difficult to communicate with your parents?
If I could just go first, I would not say easier, but I definitely understand the importance of it. So it's more, for me, it's just more important to do. Like, I need to have these kind of conversations, and like growing up, understanding like the level of contribution that they've had, and for the things that I weren't even aware of at the time, right? So just taking all that into consideration, I've made a more conscious effort to be like, hey, maybe I'll just talk to them about this. Maybe I'll just gauge what their opinion is on this. Maybe, but I think it's just always kind of balancing that distinction of like, okay, I'm just taking your input. That doesn't mean you make the decision here. And I think that's always going to be hard for them sometimes. But as we also kind of have our own families and, establish our own lives, I think every Nigerian parent will always struggle with this. But I will say that, yeah, I think it's more necessary than easy.
With that, no, I think my parents and I went through a phase where we really struggled. We butted heads a lot, especially when I was like, 16, 17, 18. And I think going to college really helped us a lot. And I think, we were able to create a level of trust between each other. And now, like, I feel like we have conversation, because it's always funny, because when your parents tell you not to do something and you do it anyway, then you later tell them like, you know what, I should have listened to you when you said that. But I mean, I made a decision anyway, and now I'm dealing with I'm dealing with the negative of it. So which, but that's where true love comes in too, because they don't abandon you in those moments, right? They find a way to help you cope in those situations. But yeah, like now, I think it's I've really got to a point where I try to give my parents a little bit as much as I can. I want to give them, because I understand, like, like the joy that some of this stuff because some of the stuff they asking for is coming from a good place. Like for example, when I was trying to do my wedding, I know it was really important to include a level of Nigerian aspect into it. Even though I would have loved to give them a full Nigerian wedding, but but for me, I didn't want a full like a separate day to do a Nigerian wedding and like have a 3-day wedding. But I knew like, okay, let's compromise here. So it's really finding a middle ground with them and just like, okay, here's a little something. It's a little something for me. Yeah, is that cool? Like it's just making sure like they are happy, and like, and just for them, they also have to like adjust like their expectation as well, because they understand like what's the situation I'm in, and also like, and there's not really much that they get what they get at the end of it. You kind of hit in the head, because like you intake all the feedback they give you, and then you make the best decision you can from there, because they're going to share what they want to say regardless if you want to hear it or not. So
facts.
So you're a fan of you, like, I ain't making pounded yam today. I eat McDonald's today. I eat Burger King today. I ain't pounding no yam today.
But shout out to our parents though, man. They came a long way. So
real MVPs.
Yeah, for real, man. Shout out to all parents.
I would say communication got easier. When I switched career paths, as I got older, there's more to talk about, especially being a parent now. There's more information that flows back and forth. For the most part, I can talk to my dad about anything. And I think D Black, my aunt, that's my mother's best friend, and how she's like, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. And it's just like, yeah, that sounds good, but that's not me. That's not realistic. And my dad will give me advice on how certain things should work. And I'm just like, yeah, that's how it worked back in the 1980s, but it's not how that works now. But I let them talk about it, and it's just like, hey, I'll try to say it to him politely, like, hey, things have shifted. It's a new era, so things are handled a lot differently. It's easy. Like my dad calls me, I can call him and ask him a question about whether it be parenting, whether it be about my career, some advice here and there. I think parents enjoy being able to give input, right? You never stop being a parent even after your child becomes 18. And I learned that the toughest of ways and the easiest of ways. So just to call them up, just to say, hey, see how they're doing, or like, hey, I'm going through the struggle. Even though you may know the answer to it, just getting their input and advice makes them feel a lot better that they're able to be a part of what you have become, for them to reap the rewards of the investment that they made as you grow up. You may not necessarily need the advice, but you're showing that respect, saying like, hey, thanks for putting all this energy into me. Thanks for dealing with my shit when I know I did something wrong. And thanks for tolerating my behavior when I knew I acted a fucking fool to you and around you. And there are times that I embarrassed you, but that's just the growing pains of being a kid. That's the growing pains of being a parent. But how you level that out is as an adult, and to Glenn being a parent now, you reach out for that advice, right? And for us soon to be parents at some point, and Dre also being a parent, it's that enjoyment, right? You can talk about certain shit that you didn't understand growing up. Now you get it now. And it's just like, you need to laugh or cry about it, or do a mix of both. But it's just like, damn, now I understand why they said what they said and did what they did. It is not easy by far. So communication is a lot easier for me now. It's a lot more enjoyable. It's a lot more laughs. I still want to have a drink with my father. So that's kind of weird. It's just like, hey, Dad, let's have a drink. He doesn't smoke cigars, but I do. But it's just
Let's do shots, Dad.
Yeah, I don't.
It's fucked up.
I don't know about all that. But that I would say like, to say that to my dad, communication's gotten easier, right?
Yeah,
and then
sure.
to my aunt, seeing me drink and me doing what I do, she's still like, she still calls me her baby, which I get upset about because I'm a grown ass man.
Chunky having the sex now. He got the baby.
No. The stork
brought the baby.
The
That's
stork.
where babies come from. We learned this today.
Straight from
We
Nigeria.
learned anything today. Babies come from storks.
But yo, one thing the champion that Chunky said was how, yo, real talk, you definitely finesse your guardians or your parents as you get older. Like, you tell them as much as you know you want to tell them to avoid, and you sometimes will feed them lies. Like, yeah, I did that. Yeah, I did it. Yeah.
Of course.
Never.
Like, oh
Never.
man, that worked.
Always.
That worked.
Friend, always.
You definitely learn how to finesse.
Funny, man.
Yeah.
Man, my mom used to ask me if I go to church on Sundays.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I went. And back in my mind, like, maybe I listened to it at home, but I didn't actually go.
That counts.
It's like, but
I was on a church podcast.
But I didn't actually go to church though. Like, but my mom doesn't ask me that question anymore. I'm so happy. But I don't feel like I have to like feel guilty when I lie sometimes.
Like, don't lie to me, friend.
Mom,
You're not going.
If you're listening, I'm always at church. I'm lying.
This was actually pre-recorded on Saturday in preference, so he could go to church on Sunday. So
Which Saturday? Was it Saturday from 10 years ago?
Oh my gosh.
Mom, I was just joking. I'm not never lie. You know me.
I don't even know what to believe anymore. I'm so confused.
Here comes the original Francis.
I know.
That was a joke. Stop it. Come on. Keep going.
I just know
Or
our
was
time.
it?
We don't know.
Yeah.
Our time is
know.
coming soon too. Fran, your time will be coming soon too.
Oh,
man.
man.
no,
I
I'm
just
nervous
really want to
now.
see like what you're gonna do when your child lies to you. Like
Yeah,
knowing
yeah,
that it's a straight up
It's
lie.
gonna happen.
Are you gonna give him?
I mean,
Are you gonna give him grace?
I got
like through their teeth.
I got siblings right now. I can lie.
It's
like,
different. It's
stare
different
you
when it's
dead
your
in your
child.
soul.
Like, are you gonna give him grace? Like, I did it too. I understand. So let's
it
be
depends what
honest.
it is. It depends what it is. Yeah.
The F for fantastic, Dad. That's not how they grade things.
It's different now. It's not how it was when you grew up.
But nah, we all know D and Fran's kids are gonna be super honor roll. Probably the deans of the school.
Damn, is my kid gonna be an idiot?
For real. You're gonna be the dean at 5 years old. We already know. Dean of the daycare. All right, so let's get into the last one before we wrap this up. What are some things you think you would do differently or the same as your parents? And provide an example.
man, talking about drinking and kids. Oh yeah. Chunky, to respond to your comment, good was good for you. Good was not good enough for us. You have to be great. So with the grade comment, that's all.
No. So like the grades, like, don't sleep. My mom was a teacher, so it wasn't as easy. She gave me grace, but it was still understood that there are certain grades I need to attain. I came home with a C, and believe you me, that was the worst grade I ever got in my life for multiple different reasons.
Yeah, that's what's up. No, yeah, but that's good though. Yeah, I think there's some great qualities that like the African, well, like my parents did. There's emphasis on family over everything. Even one of the things that I learned from my mom that I've shared with other younger like couples, especially the ones going through like the marriage phase, because I understand how challenging that could be for both sides. Is my mom told me like don't ever put your family over your spouse, and don't ever put your spouse over your family. So like, I mean, I understand some people may disagree with that, but for me, I can relate to that. So for me, like family is everything. So like that's the core of who I am. I would do anything for my family. So that's something I will for sure carry with me, with my future kids. God, like I've already talked about God, in the pod already, because my upbringing in church, like I always kind of fall back to that, even at this age. Like I feel like everything I've done in life is because of God, and I've been very fortunate and blessed. And nothing I've accomplished is due to just my ability, or it's all luck and God's blessing and favor, undeserved favors, really. So God is important. We have to pray, definitely pray. Education. We've been talking about kids. Our Nigerian parents are really high on education. For me, that's really, really going to be important as well. Something I would do different. We were talking about being strict. Yeah, like one thing I've done, I'm actually disclosing stuff right here. Every one of my siblings, when they turn 18, I take a shot with them. So like, I try to get to have their first drink. Well, I try to be the first person they have their first drink with. So
the drinking age is 21.
No, it's Manischewitz. It's not.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever. But it's in my own home, so whatever, do whatever. But so for me, like,
fair enough.
Well, not anymore.
And so for me, for my kids, I'm gonna let them make the choices that they want. Like if they want to have dreads or have a fro, because I know like I got a lot of pushback with that from my parents. Go ahead, do you. Like, as long as the grade is good, I always tell my siblings, as long as the grade is good, you can get away with a lot more. So as long as the grade is good, you can talk to me and like talk to me about a girlfriend that you may be looking at, and we could talk about it. I want my kids to feel comfortable enough to talk to me about the deepest secret, some of this stuff, because there's some stuff I've never shared with my parents that I've yet to share with them, and I plan not to share with them. But I want my kids to be able to share things with me that they've done. Like I want them to call me when something happens. Like it doesn't matter what it is.
Tell me all your secrets.
Yeah, I just want them to like feel comfortable enough, but there has to be a balance of respect. I don't want to be your best friend, but like be your parents, but parents that you can like fully trust and kind of lean on regardless of what it is. I'm not gonna, yeah. So I would just leave it at that, let other people talk. So
all right.
I think for me it's so funny because and I don't say this in a negative way to say anything against my parents, but I just think that, growing up, I was always like, oh, I'm just going to be completely different from my parents, just because, again, their upbringing was so different from mine. So I'm not going to do what they do. I'm not going to eat the same type of things. I'm not going to be into the same type of things. And it's like, I don't know if you guys seen that Geico commercial, like
don't be your parents.
Yeah, don't be your parents.
that slice of cheese is really good.
Yeah, but there's certain things that I do. I'm like, damn, that's my dad right there. Or damn, that's my mom. So I mean, and some of it. I mean, it is good, some of it's good, and some of it I've learned to just appreciate it. So, I mean, I think, in general, I think my cousin kind of already, harped on the traditional stuff as far as, like matter of faith and then also the matter of like education. I'm very much a person of education. But there's one thing that I always kind of instilled. So I guess I'll take it a little bit further because, the core professions of medicine, law, and engineering were pretty much the core professions. But for me, I understand that you can become successful doing anything. And, and it's funny because I've always told my sisters this, so I know I'm going to tell my kids this. You can be whatever you want to be, as long as you are the best at it. You got to be one of the best. So regardless of whatever profession you choose to be in, and insert profession here, however y'all think about it, I honestly don't care, because I want them, as long as they're the best at it and not just like doing it at your local bar, I'm good.
Boy, oh boy.
I am in Atlanta. I am in
local
Atlanta. So. But anyway, so that was one thing. So that's one thing. I think, obviously just pushing them to be the best version of themselves. And it's something that, just to add as well, is like my dad always used to always like make me kind of like sit down and think about what I did, but never really kind of dissected it with me. So that was the one thing that I wish, that was the one little step that I wish he kind of would have added. Like, why would you do this? Think about what you did. I'm sitting in the corner and I can't rationalize it myself. I wish that it would have been nice if you just kind of sat with me and be like, okay, this is what you did. This is why it didn't make sense, and go through that workflow, because I think that it's important. As kids are gonna make crazy decisions, and sometimes you do some stuff to spite your parents, sometimes you don't, sometimes you just want to be wild, sometimes you're trying to figure it out. But I just want my kids that regardless of whatever decision they made, at least I know that they thought about it thoroughly before they went that route. The consequences, the good, the bad, the ugly, and really been, and did some due diligence in making that decision. And then that's all I really need.
Thanks.
No, I'll probably do everything, mostly everything that sounds like 90% of it. I look at it as children are supposed to be the best parts of our parents, right? There are some good and bad things that happen, but we take that as a lesson learned. Honestly, education, yeah, when it comes down to religion, at a certain point, I was free to pick what religion I wanted to go into. And I think having that ability to figure that out, I think it's really good, because it's pretty much choose your own adventure. You get to learn a lot of different things to become well cultured and well understanding. And I'm not going to force that upon you. When it comes down to education, yeah, pick whatever education that you choose to pursue. If you want to be an artist and go to an art school, that's on you. You can be one of the best artists ever. I don't know what your true talent is, because I'm not inside of my child. I'm not in their head. So they can really love and enjoy something and be the best at it. And I'm saying, oh, well, you need to pick these core professions and that's it. I don't think that's right. And that limits their potential of being something. And they may switch back and forth and accumulate a lot of different levels of experience to be better at one specific thing, or to be better at a myriad of things. Like my daughter can be a stunt car driver, a painter, and a cook. And
somebody's gonna be a stunt car driver.
He's speaking it. He's speaking it.
I mean, she could just downright hate it, and it's just like, that's cool. Like I want what's best for you, what you truly enjoy. If you enjoy what you do, it's not really a job or a career. It's just you going out there having fun, and then understanding. Like I really would like for my child to tell me everything, but I don't think I can handle everything my child would tell me, even the deepest stuff, because I have to understand my reaction to it. It's like if my child's like, oh, I did this, this, and this, I'm like,
I don't even know
what the fuck. Like, it's just one of those things where it's just like, I don't know if I can manage that. So to me, I have to work on that myself. Mm-hmm. But it's just like one of those things. But did you die though? It's just like I've had my wild moments too, so I give that grace, right? So there are a lot of different things I would do differently, but like I said, 90% of it would be the same. At the end of the day, I want my child to know that she is loved, to know that she has no limitations, and to know that with every choice that she makes comes with a result. The reason why I don't say consequence, because there are bad choices that you make that may come with a positive result behind it, which is really ironic or weird. There are good choices that you make that comes with a negative result behind it. So it's just understanding that what you do has to be done for your benefit. I say this a lot. It's how you feel when you put your head down on your pillow at night that makes the difference. As a parent, I can tell you how you should feel, but you know how you should feel. So I want my daughter to understand that. And if I decide to have another child, I want my next child to understand that too. Will I play favorites? Probably. And that's when it would be shitty on my end. But at the end of the day, it's just like, excel at it. Enjoy life. Life is very short. So enjoy everything that you do. I will put structure in there. I will put a balance in there, but I want to be able to teach them enough to be able to handle life.
Bad. That's what's up, man. And I would say, speaking from my unique experience, and I can say for all immigrant parents, like I feel like, and that doesn't matter what color you are, you could be from Ireland, Spain, Africa. Man, I feel like there is no people that work as hard physically as they do because they just have so many pressures on them. And that's one thing I could emulate or carry over is just that work ethic. And I think it does carry over in me, the sense of just like just from day one, like just watching my parents go to work like every day and like kind of like in a way struggle and succeed and prosper and kind of create the foundation that they did for my sister and I. It's just like there is no refuting that. Like that was their way of showing love. So that affection that they did not get as they were growing up or how to verbalize it, they showed it in action. And I mean, that speaks words, but that's probably also the thing that I would do differently as well, is to also verbalize it, because I feel like sometimes you receive punishment, and to speak to these points, like you never really got a justification as to why that was. It was just, you didn't do what I tell you to do. You didn't get that ass beat, learn from it. And it was just like, all right, but where is the compassion to kind of bundle all this experience into one? So I'll say that's definitely one thing that I would do a little differently. And also just allowing, my children the chance to explore things in a safe environment, like when it comes to their careers or the professions or the things that drive them, is giving them the full support. And, that's also one of the things that I got from my parents as well. But more so as they enter their adulthood, it's just straight out support, whatever it is that you want to do. As long as you're not hurting yourself or anyone in the process, I'm down for it. If you're not committing any felonies or misdemeanors, I'm down for it. You know what I mean? So, but y'all know what time it is. It's time to come to a close. So I can't do that without dropping my curse first. So last episode, I said Ross Clot. Today, I'm saying Bumba Ross Clot. So if you're listening,
I thought the curse came at the end though.
It is. This is the end. This is the end. So if you listen to the full episode, drop Bumba Ross Clot in the comments. If you listen to the full thing, that's what I want to see. Whoever listens to the full thing, drop that in the comments. I'll hook you up with something. All right. But for more content, to learn more about the pod, feel free to check us out at Georgia Love Collar Pod on Instagram. Podcast episodes drop every Wednesday. Stay tuned for the outro coming right up to the additional ways to reach us and send us your feedback. Like what you hear, be sure to like, share, follow, and or subscribe. Leave us a review on your platform of choice. Thank you for chopping with us. See you all again next week. Peace.
Peace.
This is the end, my friend.
And that concludes today's episode, but that doesn't mean the conversation has to end. As a matter of fact, feel free to check us out at JJC Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter for our post-discussion question following the release of this episode. If you are a Black or minority business owner or professional that would like to be featured on the Rep Yours segment of our show, or a listener with some general feedback for the podcast panel, feel free to shoot us an email at jjcpod@gmail.com. As always, likes and comments are always appreciated. Be sure to subscribe or follow to be notified when the next episode releases. And until then, stay safe, stay blessed. Peace.